Netanyahu has failed. He wanted to crush the resistance. He wanted to retrieve the hostages without negotiations. He wanted to depopulate Gaza.
How robust is Hamas at this stage?
I think it's robust enough for the Israelis and the Americans to negotiate with.
Can an idea really be defeated? The Gazan resistance has proven to be far more resilient than Netanyahu's predictions. This week, we speak with Dr Azzam Tamimi, an academic and activist who has authored one of the most authoritative works on Hamas in English.
The world is changing because of the 7th of October. Now the world can see that this is not Jewish suffering being compensated. This is another colonial, imperialist, supremacist, fascist project led by Zionism. It's anti-human. It's not just anti-Palestinian. It's not just anti-Muslim. It's anti-human.
Netanyahu may try his level best to return to hostilities and to never enter into phase 2. Today we have Dr Azzam Tamimi, author of Hamas Unwritten Chapters, to talk to us about the deal which was signed 2 days ago and the ceasefire which came into effect yesterday. Dr Azzam Tamimi, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back to the Thinking Muslim.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for having me again.
Barakallah feek. Well, it's really good to have you with us. Now, we're speaking just a day after the ceasefire came into effect, and so there's a lot of moving parts. And of course, whether this ceasefire would hold, Allah knows. And we are in a very difficult situation, it seems to me, or at least a period where things are very cloudy and not very many things are black and white. However, commentators have suggested that the reason why Hamas had to accept this deal was out of weakness. Hamas, according to, these are largely mainstream Western commentators, Hamas ran out of options. Is that your reading of, is this a marker of failure for Hamas?
I don't see this as a failure at all. To the contrary, I think Netanyahu has failed in his bid to achieve any of his objectives. He wanted to crush the resistance. He wanted to retrieve the hostages without negotiations. He wanted at one stage to depopulate Gaza. Now, I think the whole landscape changed, and that's why Hamas, Hamas has always been willing to accept a deal. They negotiated deals before, Hamas accepted them, and it was Netanyahu who either reneged on them or refused them right at the beginning. Now, what Trump did actually is that he presented the Arab and Muslim leaders with a plan. Then that plan was tampered with, and it was changed. One article even was completely omitted from it.
It was a 21-point.
Yes, it was 21, and then ended being 20. Netanyahu came and sat with Witkoff and Kushner for several hours, and they changed they redrafted the points. Now Hamas looked at this and decided to say neither yes nor no, but gave an answer that opened the door for negotiating, simply because what was offered wasn't a plan. If you looked at the points, that was not a plan. These were instructions. These were orders. You need a plan for every one of them in order to implement them. So Hamas said, okay, we welcome the initiative, but there are things that pertain to Hamas, there are things that pertain to the Palestinian people as a whole, and therefore they are beyond us, and we cannot decide on our own. And there are things that are vague and need to be discussed, and we need to negotiate. So this is what happened. So the ceasefire that went into effect much later than was promised, anyway, was the product of the negotiations. It wasn't simply straightforward Trump's plan. It was the result of several days and several nights of continuous negotiations that were attended and witnessed by the Qataris and the Turks, as well as the Egyptians.
Right. Because, of course, one of the points in the 20-point plan talks about the demilitarization of Gaza and, in effect, the eradication of Hamas as a political and military authority in Gaza. I mean, do you think that we'll get anywhere near that type of outcome?
Well, if the Israelis and their allies in the West believed Hamas could be eradicated, they would not have negotiated with it.
Right.
They sat with Hamas top leaders negotiating the terms. Now, Hamas was very clear about demilitarization and or decommissioning or laying down their arms.
Yeah.
They said this can only be done if there is a Palestinian state. Like every other state, the state has a monopoly over force, over power, over the use of force. Unless that happens, you cannot expect us to just give you the arms and wait to be slaughtered.
Yeah.
Because this is what will happen.
Every child deserves a chance to dream, to learn, to feel safe, to be loved. But for millions of orphans around the world, that chance is cut short. In places like Lebanon, Syria, Kenya, Jordan, Yemen, Turkey, Afghanistan, and beyond, children who have lost one or both parents face unimaginable challenges. Without support, they risk falling into poverty, dropping out of school, and losing hope. Through our orphan sponsorship program, you can help keep their hope alive. Your monthly gift provides nutritional support to ensure they are healthy and growing, educational resources to help them succeed in school, and social and emotional care to remind them they're not alone. If you prefer to make a broader impact, you can also contribute to our Orphan Support Fund, which helps thousands of children in places like Gaza and Africa receive the support they need to thrive. When you support an orphan, you change a life and give hope to a brighter future for all. Turn your compassion into hope.
So how do you assess Hamas as an organization at this stage? Some analysts argue that many hundreds of thousands of its fighters have now been removed, been killed, and of course a lot of its leadership, especially those in Gaza, have been killed, have been martyred by Israeli forces. How robust is Hamas at this stage?
I think it's robust enough for the Israelis and the Americans to negotiate with. Now, I don't know. Nobody has absolute details.
Yeah.
But of course, it doesn't require much expertise to conclude that militarily Hamas is much weaker. But that's not the issue here. Hamas popularity is up, and not just among Palestinians. Hamas today is the true representative of the Palestinians in the eyes of the world. Even those who don't recognize Hamas as a legitimate organization feel they have to sit with it and negotiate. Now, in terms of membership, we heard so many reports. Yes, probably many of its members have already been martyred. But this is a movement that continues to recruit. Hamas is not just an organization. Hamas is an idea. Hamas is a tradition. Hamas is a culture. Hamas today stands for what every Palestinian believes to be his or her rights. And the loss of leadership is not new to Hamas. Right from the beginning, after its formation, after its birth in 1987, the Israelis launched campaign after another. And in 1 month, they assassinated the 2 top leaders of the movement inside Gaza, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, followed by Abdelaziz Rantisi. They assassinated scores before and many after. Hamas is not based on some sort of a personal cult. It is based on an idea. So long as you have people who believe in this idea and who work for it, the movement will continue to compensate its loss.
And do you believe that the last 2 years of slaughter, the genocide, has actually increased Hamas's appeal amongst ordinary Palestinians?
There's no question about this.
Right.
Even there have been polls recently that prove this.
Really?
And that's why you find that the Zionist media and some of the Arab Zionist media that was wishing for Hamas to be completely eradicated were employing certain voices here and there to complain and to accuse Hamas of being responsible for this tragedy, for this catastrophe. But this is not the opinion of the majority of the Palestinians.
I mean, do you believe, of course, one can accept the legitimacy of the resistance, but do you believe that, and this is relitigating, the attacks 2 years ago, but do you believe that it was right strategically, now I'm asking, for Hamas to have launched this attack against Israel?
I don't think anyone in our times can judge this. This is very similar to the Tet offensive. I think we talked about this on a previous meeting, during a previous encounter. Those who launched the Tet offensive in February 1968 in Vietnam thought they could achieve a certain objective. Their objective was to turn the Vietnamese against their government that is in South Vietnam, the government that was lackey to the Americans. Yeah. They failed in that, and they were eventually militarily defeated. But their attack, the Tet offensive, sparked the beginning of the end of American presence in Vietnam. It turned the Americans and then the Europeans and then the rest of the world against America. And the Americans had to negotiate first in Paris. When the negotiations failed, they had to withdraw unilaterally in utter humiliation. So who am I to say the 7th of October was a miscalculation or a misadventure? Today, as we stand, we can see many positive outcomes. The world is changing because of the 7th of October. Yes, of course. There has been there's been much loss. There's been much suffering. 100,000, nearly 100,000 Gazans lost their lives. Many more probably are amputees or wounded. The entire Gaza Strip is destroyed. No homes, no schools, no hospitals, no universities, etc. But this might be found by future historians to be the one reason the world changed and the balance was tilted in favor of the Palestinians. Because Israel, since its creation until recently, always provided a narration that presented it to the world as if it were the victim. Or because of the Holocaust, and because the Jews are hated, and because of anti-Semitism. And it is as if the Palestinians or the Arabs or the Muslims were responsible for all of this. Yet, many around the world believed this false narrative, which, by the way, most Jews in the beginning did not believe in, and they tried to refute. And then Israel became the global compensation for Jewish suffering. Now the world can see that this is not Jewish suffering being compensated. This is another colonial, imperialist, supremacist, fascist project led by Zionism, which does not represent Judaism or the Jewish people.
You wrote a recent piece in Middle East Eye where you talked about the motivations of Donald Trump. Can I ask you, do you feel that, in a sense, Donald Trump has been exceptional here? I mean, he was willing to force Netanyahu into this deal. At least that's what the common narrative suggests. Whereas we can't think of a recent president that was willing to coerce an Israeli prime minister into a peace agreement with the Palestinians, with Hamas and with the Palestinians. I mean, do you give credit in a way to Donald Trump for his diplomacy?
Donald Trump could have stopped the war immediately after taking office.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And why he has changed his mind and managed to bring Netanyahu to the negotiating table again, there are a number of factors. It's not just one factor. I think there are a number of factors.
Yeah.
First of all, I think the world has given Netanyahu too much time to do the job. Netanyahu kept saying, just give me a few more weeks, a few more days, a few more hours, and I'll finish the job. He couldn't do that. And we almost entered into the third year of this genocide, of this war. Now, throughout the past 2 years, so much happened in the world that people's perception of Palestine, Israel, the conflict changed. And there's an entire generation, especially the youth, and many are Jewish, who are opposed to the war and who consider Zionism today to be the problem. The language changed so much. Many of the things that were taboo until recently, now people talk about them, even in America. I mean, look at the talk shows, look at the podcasts, some even from the right-wing trend in America. They're all condemning Israel for what it has been doing. And the Arab governments, Arab and Muslim governments, have grown also very worried. Because until when can they control their masses? The masses are boiling. In Egypt, in Jordan, in Arabia, in North Africa, in probably Pakistan, in Malaysia, Indonesia, everywhere. In some African Muslim countries as well. So I think we reached a stage where all these factors came together, forcing everyone to say enough is enough. The Arab leaders and the Muslim leaders whom Trump met in New York, Trump and his administration, many Israelis, by the way, the families of the hostages, and the youth and the demonstrations, the demonstrators around the world. So all these factors really came together. Trump, of course, was hoping to be awarded the Nobel Prize for this.
Yes.
That might have been a side order rather than the main menu. So he might have had some personal ambition, but I think it was a lot more than that.
Yeah. I mean, how important do you think the attack on Doha, the Qatar attacks, were the failed attempts by Israel to assassinate the leadership, the negotiating team in Qatar, how important do you think that was in consolidating the minds here in the West?
I think it played a part, definitely, because first, this was an attack on the negotiators. He wanted to kill the people with whom his team was negotiating. Second, he attacked a country that is hosting the negotiations, a country that is hosting the biggest American military base in the world, really, or in the region at least in the region. And he, by doing so, he infuriated some of his own friends in the Gulf. I think the Saudis and the Emiratis, of course, the Emiratis had normalized relations through the Abrahamic Accords. The Saudis were going to until the 7th of October happened, and they were still willing. But when this happened, they came to conclude that this guy is crazy. He could be attacking anywhere. I mean, nobody imagined that the Qataris would be attacked in this way, because they were very close to the Americans. They were involved in mediation. They were hosting the negotiators. So yes, I think it did, and it was condemned by most leaders around the world, including in Europe.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on in one of your answers that the meeting that took place between the Arab Muslim leaders on the sidelines of the UN and Donald Trump may have impacted. I mean, we've had a number of interviews where we've described the failure of these Muslim governments. Like, what changed? Why is it that that meeting suddenly raised the issue of Palestine and Gaza? And it seems like that consolidated in the mind of Donald Trump that he needs to act. Like, what made the difference there?
Well, of course, Muslim and Arab leaders are very disappointing. I mean, they failed their peoples and they failed the Palestinians.
Yeah.
But see, politics is not a straightforward thing. I think because Netanyahu couldn't do the job, it took him so long, and he managed only to destroy so many lives and to be indicted by the international courts, that this has become an embarrassment, even for Arab and Muslim leaders. I think this is what changed. And when they met with Trump, and probably earlier through bilateral contacts, they told him that this cannot continue like that. Until when is this going to continue? And that brings me back to the idea that I tried to explain to you, that there were so many factors coming together at the same time, and they together caused the change.
Of course, this deal is separated into two phases, and phase one is the simple but important ceasefire phase. But of course, there has to be negotiations regarding phase two, and from all accounts, I mean, thinking about the original ceasefire that came into effect when Donald Trump became president, it seems to me that Netanyahu may try his level best to return to hostilities and to never enter into phase two, where there's a full withdrawal of Israel and a reconstruction of Gaza. Is that your reading? I mean, do you feel that the situation may be as precarious as last time, and we may be talking, may Allah forbid, in a few months' time, talking about a return to this genocide?
Well, Netanyahu is well known to be a compulsive liar. He is deceitful. You can put all the ugly words in describing him. But I think the change that has happened after 2 years of genocide will make it less likely for him this time to return to war. First of all, Trump is involved, and Trump personality and his ego, and he's going to come to the Middle East. He's going to sign the deal by himself. So he is going to make it more difficult for Netanyahu to turn against the deal. But also, Netanyahu at home is having problems. And that's why that's the reason why he prolonged the war. He wanted the war to continue because he didn't want to go to jail. Now, with the war ending, probably life going back to semi-normal, and they're going to prepare for the next elections. And if he doesn't go to jail before the elections, and he doesn't win the next elections, he will definitely go to jail afterwards. So there are all sorts of considerations. And then I think the world is not willing to allow him this time. There's no justification whatsoever. And some European leaders are very anxious about what's likely to happen to them if cases are lodged against them in the international courts. The Germans, the Italians, probably the British as well. Any government that supported Israel in its genocide is likely to be made accountable for that. So again, there are a number of factors that will make it a lot more difficult for Netanyahu even to contemplate returning to war.
Netanyahu, of course, is a politician that's been in power for a very long time in Israel. But of course, we know that with many governments, if you change the face, potentially you can change the narrative. I mean, how, in a previous answer, you've talked about how Israel as an idea, Zionism as an idea, is today toxic, especially in the minds of younger Americans, younger Europeans. How consolidated do you think that toxic label is now? I mean, do you feel that there is a way for Israel to recover its position in the world with a change of leader, with a change of emphasis, with a aesthetic shift?
Well, if they really want to improve their image in the world, then they have to change a lot about themselves.
Yeah.
The religious Zionist current is a great detriment to them.
Yeah.
Many of its leaders, like Ben Gvir and Smotrich, are indicted criminals in the eyes of the world. But I really don't know whether they'll do this or not. See, for me, I can see one thing very clearly. The 2 years war was only the beginning of a long process, and that's the process of undoing Zionism. Zionism will eventually be undone because it's a colonial project. And one of the signs of this is that an increasing number of people around the world are seeing it for what it is. It's anti-human. It's not just anti-Palestinian. It's not just anti-Muslim. It's anti-human. Because in the name of the divine, they can justify any crime, including genocide. Yeah. And that's very dangerous. So they may try to improve their image again, but I am of the belief that it's too late. It's too late.
So what does the undoing of Zionism mean in practical terms?
Well, Zionism is a colonial project. It's like colonialism in Algeria. It came to an end. It's like apartheid in South Africa. It came to an end. It's like American imperialism in Vietnam. It came to an end. It's like the Nazism in Europe, and it came to an end. It will come to an end. But that doesn't, I don't mean by this, of course, the end of Judaism and the Jews. Jews are in the eyes of the Muslims, on the basis of our faith, are the people of the book. And we don't blame Jews for Zionism. We knew that initially the majority of the Jews were opposed to Zionism, and we know that today there is an increasing number of Jews who are distancing themselves from Zionism and from Israel. So in a future where there is no Zionism, Muslims, Jews, Christians, and all other religions can once again coexist peacefully in the area that is colonially known as the Middle East.
Yeah. Can I ask you about a question which is more local, which is more on the British home front? The group Palestine Action, of course, it's banned now as a terrorist group, unfairly, I think we would argue, but it's banned. So we have to be careful how we talk about them. But a group Palestine Action has been outlawed by the government, and it seems like it's outlawed on the most flimsiest of reasons. I mean, you know, it's nowhere near anything which we can term a terrorist organization. It's been amazing to see just how many non-Muslims have come out to support the deprescription of Palestine Action. I think there are now over 1,000 people that have been arrested by the police under terrorism charges because they have engaged in civil disobedience outside Whitehall. Just comment on that, please. Like, what you've obviously been in Palestinian activism for many decades. Have you seen anything like this before?
No, not in Britain. I think that's a very dangerous trend.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people go out and subject themselves to being detained and accused of terrorism, because they are worried not about Palestinian action, but they're worried about civil rights. Because the Labour Party has gone beyond imagination in encroaching upon people's basic rights. I mean, Britain was well known to be the most liberal of all European countries in terms of civil liberties and human rights. And now this is happening. And I think the Labour Party, which is under the influence of the Zionist lobby, exploited this case in order to test the waters and then go further. Today they're proscribing this group and they're criminalizing sympathy with it. But tomorrow and the day after, they will go after other people. and other groups and other organizations. That's what makes it very dangerous.
Yeah. Back to the 20-point plan. There is in phase 2. There's a conversation about creating a transitional body of bureaucrats, or non-political technocrats, I think they call them, and that will so-called consist of Palestinians, but also be overseen by a number of international figures. And Tony Blair is one such figure. I mean, how viable do you think that is as an option?
I think it's a ridiculous idea.
Yeah,
it's unlikely to ever be successful.
Yeah,
I mean, look, the Palestinians in Gaza never surrendered. 2 years of genocide, and they did not surrender themselves.
yeah,
And eventually, they managed to get the ceasefire through negotiations, almost direct negotiations. And now, the Israelis and their allies in the West think they can bring a war criminal to run the affairs of the people of Gaza. Tony Blair would be mad to involve himself in something like this.
yeah.
He'd be crazy to involve himself in something like this.
What next for the people of Gaza? I mean, we know as Muslims that, and you've always talked about this, that we need to be optimistic and we need to believe in and have faith in ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's victory. Sometimes we look at just the enormity of the challenge in front of us. Gaza is under rubble today. Some say it will take decades to clear up Gaza, let alone rebuild Gaza. Like in your mind, how viable now is Gaza as a place where Palestinians will reside?
Yes, Gaza is in rubble, but that can be rebuilt.
Yeah,
it can be done. I know that the picture is, or it seems very, very gloomy.
yeah,
But I don't see it this way. I see the steadfastness and the resilience of the people of Gaza as a main failure, as a major failure for Zionism and its supporters. That's really what matters. A house gets destroyed, it can be rebuilt. It's no big deal. The success in Gaza, the success of the people of Gaza in withstanding all this punishment
yeah,
by the Zionists will be seen in the coming days. I am optimistic that this will have an impact across the Arab world, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Gulf. And the Arabs do not lack resources. They don't lack the expertise and the talents. They lack freedom. The day they regain their freedom, everything else will be made easy.
yeah.
So this is how I look at it. I'm not put off by the scene of destruction. People are dearer to us than stones and bricks. So many people have perished as a result of this war. But there are also many who are still alive. If you saw the pictures today, the footage today of people returning to their homes, their homes were rubble, were in rubble, completely destroyed, leveled to the ground. Their mosques, their universities, their schools, everything, their clinics, their hospitals. Yet, they moved from the center of Gaza and from the south all the way back to Gaza City. Gaza City, during the past few weeks, the Israelis did not leave a single building standing. Yet, you can see the enthusiasm in the eyes, and can see the optimism in the eyes of these people going back to their homes.
I mean, you're Palestinian. You've been involved in Palestinian activism for many decades. I remember when I was at university, you were given lectures on Palestine. Alhamdulillah. So that mindset, sometimes it's outstanding. It's astonishing to see, and I think a lot of people just marvel at the resilience of the Palestinians. Just explain that mindset. Like, what formulates that type of resilience in the minds of these occupied people?
Well, it's not unique to the Palestinians. So many nations before us struggled and made sacrifices, enormous sacrifices, in order to gain their freedom. As we mentioned earlier, the Vietnamese, Algerians, other nations that were under colonialism, the people of South Africa who fought apartheid. But in addition to this, Palestinians are Muslims, and they have Islamic faith. The Islamic faith teaches them that this world is not an eternal abode. It's going to end one day. We are going to leave, and it would be better to live as a struggler, as a mujahid, rather than live while sleeping in your bed or in your comfortable sofa. So it is, all these martyrs will not be seen as loss. They will be seen as a sacrifice necessary in order for the people and the land to be free again. The Algerians offered millions, the Vietnamese millions as well. So there is really nothing unique about it. Though, of course, the Islamic faith, the belief in the last day, in the hereafter, and in the eternal rewards prepared by Allah for the believers who make these sacrifices is an important addition.
Dr. Tamimi, you've written this book on Hamas, the unwritten chapters. I think the book is a little, I mean, it's written a number of years ago.
Yes.
Do you have any plans to update this book with the most recent episodes?
Well, I wish. Well, at the time I wrote the book, I had access to Hamas leaders. Much of the book is based on interviews. If I'm to be given that opportunity again, of course I'd be delighted. But you see, there's so much that we don't know about the recent years. I think since the collapse of the Arab Spring movements, there's so much that we need to document, and we need to do interviews with the people concerned, because Hamas was impacted upon severely by the collapse of the Arab revolutions. And then came the 7th of October. And many of the people involved in the 7th of October have gone. Some are still there. So we need to interview them, and we need to write about that phase in the history of the movement. My book talks about the birth of the movement and its development, its ideology, and the stages it went through until I finished the book in 2007. So it's a book of history about Hamas. It doesn't cover any of the contemporary events. And if I don't do this myself, I hope that someone will do it. And I'm sure so many people will try and write about this latter phase in the history of the movement.
In your mind, Hamas is here to stay?
Well, as an organization, I don't know. But as an idea, of course, definitely. Hamas, you see, one way of looking at this is compare Hamas with Fatah. When Fatah came under pressure, under the hammer, because of what happened in Jordan, and then what happened in Lebanon, and then the various stages that led to so much pressure being put on Yasser Arafat to recognize Israel, Hamas underwent severe pressure during the past 2 years, and it is nowhere near that position that Yasser Arafat decided to adopt. There is no recognition of Israel. There is still determination that Zionism is illegitimate and it cannot remain in our homes. There's still adherence to the path of jihad and struggle. And there is no regret whatsoever that they've been walking along this path. That's the difference. Hamas, until today, is the one Palestinian organization that is still carrying the torch and is leading the way.
Dr. Azzam Tamimi, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for coming in today and giving us your reflections.
Thank you.
Please remember to subscribe to our social media and YouTube channels and head over to our website thinkingmuslim.com to sign up to my weekly newsletter. Jazakallah khair.